Hi there, Jason here. Today I'm going to do a short video and try and knock out two birds with one stone. I'm going to do a final review of my Team Associated B4.1 Factory Team Worlds car, and I'm going to do a review of the new Associated 12mm big bore shocks that I have on it, so that everybody out there can decide whether or not this is worth spending the money on, the shocks anyways, for you guys. So far I've really loved the car. It handles well, it's really easy to tune. I did hear quite a few people tell me that they thought this car was going to be very fragile. That really hasn't been the case with me. I found the car to be a lot more durable than even I really expected it to be. There are some upgrades that you need to put on this car, and we'll get into that in the review. And we'll talk a little bit about the shocks, pistons, spring choices, things like that, to get the car as fast as you can get it to your track. So, thanks for watching this short video, and here we go. So the last time I ran the car, we had a little bit different layout, and we were getting by on a pin, more or less. I was using a BK bar with red AKA inserts in the back, and like a Panther Bobcat with like a blue J Concept, a closed cell insert in the front or something like that. Now our track is really sticky, and it's pretty much, you pretty much need to be on a slick, more or less, every day. In fact, the other night we raced from the time we got there in the morning all the way to the night on a slick. We never went to a pin, although we probably should have been on a ghost pin in the main. We were all getting a little bit slippery out there. The car handles really good, and I've noticed that a lot of the team drivers have been putting carbon parts in the car. Mainly the front A-arms and then the top plate. And I've asked around, and I went ahead and put the stuff on my car. It's not on there right now, which we won't get into. But I asked around, and I decided to try that stuff on the car for myself. I kind of thought that it would take a lot of steering away from the vehicle, and that's really not what happened. What really seemed to happen to me is that because the arms are quite a bit stiffer than the stock arms, you have pretty much the same amount of steering. You might lose a little bit of steering, but really what's noticeable is the car's not grabby at all. If you have a bumpy track, like our track was when it was first built here a week or so ago, it was a little bumpy, but it was super grippy. So with a slick, you'd turn into the corner and all of a sudden the car would just bite really hard. Well, the carbon arms really smooth out the way the car enters and exits the turns. It's really nice. If you race in a climate, I'm here in downtown Chicago. I race in Joliet at leisure hours. That's leisurehours.raceway.com for anybody that wants to check out the website, and there's some videos on YouTube. If you're racing in a facility like that and it's going to get chilly in the winter, the carbon stuff it's known for becoming a little bit brittle. Generally speaking, it's not going to break from driving the car, but if you stick it in the tube hard enough, when it's cold enough, any plastic's going to get more brittle when it's cold. So just keep that in mind. And I think the stock arms are about $6, and I think the carbon ones are just a couple bucks more. So it's really not a lot more money, and it really will probably improve the driving experience of the car. Now, one of my, I guess if I had one gripe so far, I couldn't really figure out. I was looking at B44 rear arms versus the regular B4 rear arm in the package, and it just seemed like it was the same damn thing with a different part number until Aaron Alexander, who works in the hobby shop, he told me that he looked at it, and what happens is this thickness, apparently the B44 arm is a little bit thicker here. I don't know if it's thicker, front to back, but he said it's thicker here. And so what ends up happening, and this is probably my biggest gripe so far, when you crash the car, I didn't say when you're driving it, so when you crash it, you can end up in a situation where this really wants to twist. And what will happen is you'll end up in a situation where some of my brand new shocks have some gouges out of them. I'll show you some close-ups of this a little bit later. And again, if I were just cruising around the track landing it clean every time, I wouldn't be complaining or even bringing this up. But if you do, cartwheel the buggy, land it dirty, try to make a pass when you probably shouldn't, there's a good chance that you could gouge your brand new shocks. And what happens is the flex in the arm allows the turnbuckle to just run into the shock and the shock body. And it's pretty disappointing considering the shocks are $50, $60 a pair. But it's just the way it is. Try not to crash. Now, Associated tells you when you get the big bores that you should use their spacers, and they have like a pretty simple little chart that you can use, and they give you the spacers, and they give you different height shock cups and spring cups and things like that. My buddy Mike Nelson at the track showed me that there's some pretty cool little on-road washers, and I don't know if they're aluminum or stainless steel or whatever, but they're really cool. They're beveled. What I did is I just took one of those washers and a ball stud washer, and everything seems to line up fine. I did end up clearancing with an X-Acto knife just a little bit so that the shock collar wouldn't rub right here in the front of the shock tower. But that's it. I didn't need to do anything for the shock caps, and they've been fine. And I did the exact same thing in the back, just a little bit of clearancing, and it's been great. On the bottom, it's basically just a fancy little blue ball stud washer. I don't know if Tamiya makes them or who makes them, but it's probably about 2 millimeters, and it works great. And generally speaking, nothing binds, nothing rubs. I don't have any problems. I've tried it with low-C springs. I've tried it with the associated springs, and all as well. One kind of goofy situation. I don't know what the heck is going on. Associated gives you these little orange washers to seal off the bleeder screw caps, and I've talked to quite a few people, and it just, if you snug them down enough to where they do the job, they can kind of like squeeze out of there and pop out. And I just haven't even used them. I just took the screw itself and put it right in there. I have heard of guys using some really small washers off of a low C22 buggy bleeder screw cap, but I've just got the screws in there, and it hasn't leaked at all, and it's been good. I tried the car with one of the team drivers, the team manager, Brent Tilkey's setup. It was a 1.7 piston in the front and the rear, 37.5 and 35, with a shaved brace and the carbon towers and all that stuff. And it was just viciously aggressive, and it felt like the car would kind of almost roll too deep in the corner in the rear, and then it would just kind of break loose randomly. And the reason I chose his setup is because he was running at a track that was using a slick, so it had to have been really high bite. So anyways, I didn't really like that. Right now I'm at a 1.7 hole piston in the rear and a 1.6 in the front, and I'm 32-30, 3 limiters and 2 limiters, and the car's been really good. A white spring in the back and a black spring up front seems to be the hot ticket. I kind of chickened out the other day. The car had so much steering, it was just getting away from me. So I tried running it with, I believe it was a green spring, is one step up from black, and it just didn't have enough steering. So I would say this, depending on your track, probably the black spring the black spring up front and the white spring in the back are probably a pretty good combo if you're at a high traction facility. I'm going to play around with some ghost pins and tires. I really think that my issue the other day, really, it's nicer to have the softer pistons in the back, but I think the real issue is having the right tire. I think I was just off on tires. I just didn't have it together. Now I am running the Reedy. I don't know what part number it is. I guess I could. It's just a Reedy Shorty. When I was up at the Spectrum race, one of Associated's top drivers that travels all over, his name's Chad Dew, an amazing driver. I've got some videos of him going up pretty soon. He was running a Shorty, but he would run the back of the battery, basically level with the 2 front screws in the U-brace. I just found that I never could get comfortable with the car with the battery that far back. So I've moved it up a little ways, and basically what I have are 3 standard Associated foams. These are probably about 6 millimeters a piece, maybe 7 millimeters a piece, something like that. And the front of the battery literally is just barely in front of these screws, and I found that that's a really well-balanced place for the battery. The car it rotates good. If it does get a little loose in the back, it's pretty easy to recover. A lot of steering, flies good, lands good. So that's where we're at with that. Let's see here. What else can we talk about? Last but not least, the shocks. So is it worth the money? For as expensive as the shocks are, they're definitely cool. And once the setup is right, they definitely make the car land better. If you're at a track that really has big jumps and big landings, and it just maybe a rougher surface, it definitely seems like the shocks are more forgiving. I don't know that if you're at a track like for instance trackside up in Milwaukee, they usually don't do really big jumps. So most of the time, I think that you could probably get away with running the small bore shock probably just as competitively as you could with something like this. The whole idea behind a big bore, from what I understand, is that you have more oil, so it's not as prone to deviation when the temperature changes. More fluid with the same amount of action with less fluid can create more heat, so the shock oil can soften up and things like that. The idea behind this shock, as far as I can tell, is that you can get more pack out of it while still having a very soft, plush shock so that it corners well. I actually called one of my very close friends who has a mechanical engineering degree from U of M, and I asked him a little bit because I know he studied fluid dynamics and all that stuff when he got his degree, and he really wasn't sure. But the idea behind pack is, when you press the car and it's on the table, that's basically your static. That's your static dampening. But when you drop a car from a much higher area and it has that instantaneous load, basically the shocks can kind of it's almost like they're hydraulicking a little bit. And you actually want this to happen, because if it didn't happen at all, the car would just chassis slap ridiculously every time you landed. I don't know if you can create the same pack and situation with the small bores as you can with the big bores, but I would say overall they're worth it. They do seem to make the car a little bit more forgiving on big track. They're worth it if you're jumping big jumps. If you're jumping small jumps, then I would say you're probably okay with the small bores. You're probably doing just fine. A really interesting thing for me that I've noticed is that this car uses much stiffer spring rates than the Losi car does, and it's heavy. And the Losi car is heavier, from what I understand. So, a lot of the guys at our track are running a Losi yellow in the back, which I believe is right around 2 or 2.1 pounds, and a red in the front, the Losi red spring. Where we're running the associated white spring and the associated black spring, which I believe, I can't remember. I think the rear is 2.1 and the front's 3. So it's interesting that a car that's lighter actually is using a heavier spring on the exact same surface. I never claim to know everything. All I know is that I try it, and if it works, I like it. So overall, the kit's been great. I put the hexes on, and I'll tell you, the way the axles work and the hexes, first of all, here's a couple of tidbits of information. When you put the steering block on that holds the hex, it's not like the stock steering block. You can't adjust it up and down. If you want to shave it down and get frisky, I guess you could do that. But the stock one, you can shim it up and down. This one, you can't do that. The other downside is that the axle that goes in here from Team Associated has a little C-clip. And it basically functions like a little crush tube so that you don't smash the bearings. And I've gone through a few bearings now in one side or the other. I can't remember which, so I don't know if the tolerance is off. I've tried shimming it and playing with it. But good news is that I just saw today on redrc.net or .com that J Concepts is releasing a billet machined axle that will basically, it's machined perfectly with the right tolerance. So these will be gone as soon as the JC stuff comes out. So that's about it. The car's been great. It's been durable. I'm gonna, once the hobby shop has some carbon arms back in stock, I'm gonna put carbon arms back on the front. I will definitely be going to a B44 rear arm, or maybe even a carbon rear arm. I'm really not sure yet, but I just know that there's just more flex here than I care for. But the car's been great. It's been great. It's been fast. It's been durable. I have no complaints. So I hope you guys got something out of this video. I'm going to shoot a few more videos here shortly and talk, in a little bit more. I'm going to try and explain with a little bit more depth the idea behind piston selection and spring selection and stuff like that. So. I never claimed to know it all, but I feel like I've got a halfway decent grasp on a lot of this stuff. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post or comment or contact me through YouTube or whatever. If you like this, please subscribe to my channel. I'll be creating more videos, and you'll get instant notifications. So thanks for checking out this video, and I'll see you next time.